Good morning. I hope this will help you with the finding the area under the curve. Several people had asked if I would do a video going through the notes to help explain some of the things that you were looking at yesterday. Just to clarify, the first thing we did yesterday is we took um, one of the old examples that I had and we looked at just as a review finding the range of if we have 99.7%. So if you'll remember in empirical rule, 99.7% is 3 standard deviations. So that means that my standard deviation is 3 and I need 3 3s. So 3 times 3, which gave me the 9. And then that is 9 is the distance away from the mean that I can be. Now I can be that distance to the left and I can be that distance to the right. So I'm going to take 26 and my distance to the left would be subtracting 9, which is 16. And then my distance to the right would be adding 9. So 25 plus 9 gives me my 34. So that's the two numbers I need for the range. Remember, if you're doing range, you must have two numbers. If you're working with a percentage, you only have one number. Okay, so number 2 is exactly the opposite. It says find the percentage. So I only need one number. All right, so I have a range. So I find the biggest number in my range, which was 40. And I'm going to subtract the mean, which is 26. And that's going to give me 14. And then I need to divide that by the size of the standard deviation, which was 7. And that gave me that I had 2 standard deviations. So I know that for empirical rule, it was 95% and Chevy Chevs was 75%. So as we go through this, one of the things I want you to think about is I want you to think about the fact that we have been talking for several weeks now about the words Z-score. And so Z-scores become very important today. The direction that we use for those Z-scores becomes even more important because now we're going to enter into word problems with Z-score. So on the notes, you'll notice that there are basically 3 boxes, left, right, and between. So those are the directions that we can use with the Z-score. So basically what I just did is I gave you some short little notes about what it means to use the Z-score. So if I come from the left on the Z-score, if I draw the bell curve, then I'm going to ask for the percentage of values that fall to the left of the curve. So whatever my number is, I want to know what's from the left. Well, when we do this chart over here that you also have a copy of, it tells you at the bottom that all the numbers that they compute come from the left. So what we did was we made a list of keywords. So if I'm coming from the left, the word left may be in there. I may have a less than symbol, or I may have the words less than, smaller than, fewer than. All of those means that I'm coming from the left. When I do anything from the left, all I'm going to do is I'm going to look up the Z-score that I have on this chart over here on the left, because that's the way they were computed, to come from the left. If we're coming from the right, then if my number is here and I want the numbers from the right, notice it's everything except what I get from the left. So this whole area under the curve, if I turn 100% into a decimal, that would be 1. So this whole thing is equal to 1. So for this one, I'm going to say the keywords are greater than, more than, those kinds of words, and then my greater than symbol. So when I come from the right, I'm going to do 1 minus the number from the chart. Now, I cannot emphasize enough that you never do any mathematical operation until you look the number up on the chart. Let me say that one more time. You never do a mathematical operation on these numbers until you look the number up on the chart. Once you look the number up on the chart, then you can decide what to do. Never do anything to the z-score itself. It must be looked up on the chart. All right, our last one is between. So if I'm in between two numbers, in this case, I would be in between 40 and 60. So I would want the things that are just in between these two. And the way I do that is I look up both of these on the chart and then I subtract them. And you have to do that in a way that makes your answers positive. So if you cannot have a negative area, remember from geometry, you cannot have a negative area. So your numbers have to come out to be positive, and you are going to be turning those into a percent. So what we did yesterday is we went through each type of these and we looked the numbers up on the chart. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through a couple of these. So the first ones we did were from the left. So it says I need to the left of z equals 1.31. So that's the first one I'm going to do. So notice in your chart, if you look over here on your chart, when you're looking at your chart, you have a positive side and you have a negative side. So the first thing you've got to pay attention to is what is the sign of my z-score? And in this case, my sign is positive. So I want to take that and I want to find, and I'm going to open this up so you can see a little bit better. I need to find 1.31. So 1.3, the first part of my number is right here on the left. And then if you'll notice at the top, you have numbers that are 0.00, 0.01, 0.02. That is the last digit of the number that you're looking at. So I'm looking for 1.31. So I'm going to 1.3 and I'm going over to my 0.01 column. So my answer here is 0.9049. Okay, so 0.9049. And because I'm coming from the left, I don't have to do anything to that number. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to move the decimal place 2 places to the right and turn it into 90.49%. Okay. Same thing for number 21. I have 2.11. Now, I know you're going to want to try to take a shortcut and you're not going to want to look at the top of this column. So the thing you have to remember, if you're not going to look at the top up here, is that the first column is 0. So don't miscount. So I have 2.1, and then I need to go over to the 1 column. So I'm going to go to 2.1. This is 0. This one is a 1. So my answer is 0.9826. Okay. So the first couple, I think there are 2 on your homework that are from the left. So if you want to stop now and go do those 2, you're welcome to do that. If we're coming from the right, then we have to look the number up on the chart first because that's what we always do. Okay, so let's look these up from the right. No, we didn't do any with mathematical symbols, so I'm going to go back and do my mathematical symbols first. So let me get over. Okay, so if I go to number 31, it says I need, 32, I'm sorry. The probability that z is less than negative 1.77. Okay, this is your less than symbol, so that means I'm coming from the left. Okay, so what the sign of my number is negative, so I need to be on the negative part of the chart. Okay, so scroll back to your negative and I need negative 1.7. And then I'm going to scroll over to my 0.7 on my chart. I need to make this a little bigger. Okay, so negative, so that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my answer will be 0.0384. 0.0384, and that is the number that we got for that. And then you move it over 2 places to the right to get my percentage, and you get 3.84%. Okay, let's just stay here and do a right. Okay, if we're going to do a right, let's do number 30. Okay, number 30. So I'm coming from the right because this is a greater than symbol. That tells me that I'm coming from the right. So I'm going to look up 0.8. So I got to go back to my positive side. So 0.8. And my last digit is a 2. So this is 0, 1, 2. So my answer is 0.7939. But I have to subtract that from 1. Because remember, on our directions, we say it. If it comes from the right, you subtract 1 from 1. So 1 minus 0.7939 will give me 0.2061, and then I move that decimal place over again. So that's 20.61%. Okay, let's do one with the words. So if I'm going to do one from the right, let's do number 23. So I'm coming from the right. It tells me I'm coming from the right. So I need to be on the negative side. So I'm going to come back over here and go to my negative side, and I want negative 0.1. And I'm going to have to make this bigger because I need to go to 7. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my answer is 0.4325. Okay, 0.4325. And then I have to subtract it from 1 because I'm coming from the right. So my answer is 0.5675. Turn that into a percent. Move that decimal place over 2 places. And that's 56.75%. Okay. All right. Typically, when we have between, they'll usually be on the same side of the chart, but you do need to pay attention to that. Okay. So I want to do one that's not on the same side of the chart, just to kind of get your brain in the habit of looking for the positives and the negatives. So we're going to do number 18 up here. So remember from our directions, we said the first thing we do is we look these numbers up on the chart, and then we're going to subtract them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my 0.2. Well, let's just do this one first because we're already on the negative side of the chart. So negative 1.1, and we're going to go over to 2. So 0, 1, 2. So my number is 0.1314. Okay. Then I need to go over to positive 0.24. So positive, which means I got to change side of my chart. So 0.02, and I want to go over to my 4. Okay, go over to my 4 and 0.5948. So now you got to decide which one of these is bigger. Remember, if you take the decimal off of it, you can compare it. So this 0.5948 is bigger. And so that has to go in the calculator first, minus 0.1314, and that gives me 0.4634, and you turn that into 46.34%. The other way that you could see this written is you could see it written in mathematical symbols, and it's always going to be something that looks like this. Okay, so you're going to have the Z in the middle, and you're going to have 2 numbers on either side. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly run through number 35 with you. So if I look up on the chart, negative 2.46, I'm going to find that gives me 0.0069. And then I'm going to look up 1.74, and that's going to give me 0.9591. So this guy right here is bigger. So he has to go in the calculator first. So 0.9591 minus 0.0069, and that's going to give me 0.9522, which is 95.22%. So basically that is what we covered on Thursday, and hopefully that will help you a little bit as you go through this. Hopefully you can understand a little better about what we did, and we will be doing the bottom of that worksheet next week. So hang on to you should have a copy of that worksheet. So just know that we're going to finish the bottom half next week. Hope that helps.